I'm Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with you to explore your intuition, the supernatural, and self-empowerment. This is Third Eyesight. Hey everybody, it is Valentine's Day week/month, and love is in the air for many people. And for other folks, it's just another month, another day on Valentine's Day, February 14th. But I thought I would focus on this episode, maybe for the next couple episodes, on dating and romance and these topics in light of spirituality, the larger topic of spirituality. And I want to talk about what spirit wants for your love life. When I talk about spirit, here's what I mean in this episode regarding spirit. The way I define spirit is the collective energy on the other side between our loved ones, our spirit guides, and God. So when I pray to spirit, I'm praying to God and my loved ones personally. That's how I relate to spirit. Sometimes to my guides as well. I include them in there once in a while. So for the purpose of this episode, if you want to replace the word spirit with spirit guides, with your loved ones, with the term God, capital G-O-D, God, feel free to do so. Take this in however way you'd like to, however we like to interpret the word spirit for yourself. I'm excited to talk about this because we often get very caught up in what we want out of our love lives, out of romance, relationship, marriage. And we don't often think about in this culture, I mean, we have so many religious ceremonies that marry people together, right? But we don't often really absorb what the higher purpose or the highest purpose is in having a relationship, having a marriage. And a lot of what I'm gonna talk about is going to come from my own personal experience, things that I've learned along the way so far in my journey. And I'm curious to hear what resonates for you. And some things you may not agree with, may rub you the wrong way, and that's okay. I'm totally okay with that. Let's have a discussion about it. Let me know what you think. First and foremost, I want to talk about this idea that dating and relationships are part of you getting to know yourself more. There's a reason that some people feel very triggered when they're in relationships. When you're in a relationship with somebody, if you're not being your true authentic self, that, number one, can cause a lot of discomfort for you, a lot of friction, because you're not showing up as your true self and you're fighting to not show your true self. And then number two, relationships can be very triggering because when we do show up as our real selves, sometimes our real selves come with that baggage, right? Come with insecurities, preconceptions, assumptions about people, and therefore assumptions about your partner based on where they're from, what language they speak, what race they are, things that we really need to try hard to not be biased by. We come into relationships of all kinds, not just romantic, with biases, and it's up to us to really work on not letting those biases get in the way. And romantic relationships are no exception to that experience. Maybe you have dated a finance bro before, or a couple finance bros, like that TikTok girl wanted to date a finance bro. And look, the term finance bro, I have to stop myself because there's my bias. The phrase finance bro, that has a lot of bias associated with it. That's my bias, calling them finance bros. So let's say instead a man who works in finance. You've dated a couple men who've worked in finance and they act a certain way, and you met two guys and they act similarly, okay? Two men in the whole entire planet who work in finance who act similarly, maybe have some behaviors you didn't like, so you think, I'm never dating a finance guy again. Well, as much as I would also lean that way, because I'm an imperfect human being, and I get it, it's really not fair to think of people this way, to put them into boxes. Just because you met two people with the same career doesn't mean that everyone else in that career track is the same way. There may be some exceptions with some certain industries, okay? I don't know, like if you date a couple people who work in the adult film industry, you maybe some insecurities come up because they work in the adult film industry. So then you learn, you know what? I can't date someone who works in the adult film industry. That's okay. That's okay. That's different because that's actually, there's a common behavior among people who work in that industry in front of the camera, right? With finance, other industries, I think it's unfair to paint a wide brushstroke across people of a similar characteristic, and you're not giving yourself the chance to be open to an exception. But that's everyone's personal choice. If you decide I'm never dating someone who works in finance ever again, that is absolutely your prerogative. But I think the hard work is to be open, to know what triggers us, and to challenge our biases, to challenge our preconceptions. And like I said before, when you're not being your real self with somebody either, it's not an authentic relationship. It's not giving you the opportunity to discover more and more about yourself. What's great about being a human being, and what's tough about being a human being, is that we require community. And it's by being out in the world with people that we learn what we like and don't like about people. Maybe what we like and don't like in ourselves that we want to change. And being in a romantic relationship, it's that, but on like steroids. It's just magnified. And therefore, it is this ground zero for confronting ourselves as well as embracing ourselves, depending on what we're working on at the moment. And that's why it can be so triggering. And that's why that's when these biases come up. And the biases and preconceptions are part of that work, confronting those biases. And when you're in a relationship, I believe it's meant to be a true partnership, a partnering. You are partners in this thing called life, navigating life together. And that's a beautiful thing. And sometimes that means that you and your partner or your person are not going to be always on the same page, but you have a common end goal in this thing called life. And as long as you both feed into that end goal and have a clear vision for that and want to support each other in getting to that goal together, that's the most important thing. Oh, there's a little fuzzy flying in front of me right now. So many fuzzies. That's my cue to go on to the next topic, the next subtopic of this topic. Well, before I get to that, I want to say first that Spirit wants us to be our most authentic selves. And the beautiful thing about being in relationship with somebody, close romantic relationship with somebody, is that we are learning more and more who our true self is, what our true self is. Because we are in this intimate, if it's an authentic connection, this intimate, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally intimate bond with somebody. And it's hard to escape being your true self when you're in that close of an intimate connection with somebody. Unless you're in a relationship where you don't have that intimate connection at all of any kind. And it is inauthentic. But then in my personal opinion, what's the point? So I think Spirit wants us to become more and more our authentic selves. And romantic relationship is one way of helping ourselves to do that. And it's not only about you, it's about the other person too. The other person, their soul is in this relationship with you to do the same, to find out more about itself. And when two people enter a relationship with the goal of, hey, I'm in this to be more and more myself, to learn more and more about yourself, and I want to support you as you learn more and more about yourself. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's relationship goals right there. I want to segue into some controversial ideas within the realm of romance and spirituality. Twin flames. I watched a documentary on Netflix about the Twin Flames cult. I think it's called the Twin Flames. I forgot what the name of the organization was, but it was a cult focused on twin flames run by this couple. And this cult was pretty horrific. Just insane. Because people who joined this cult were so desperate to find the loves of their lives that they were willing to do anything if it meant that they found that person, even if it wasn't the right person for them. That's how desperate they were. And I'm not judging that because we've all been there. Some of us are there right now. But what I don't like about this concept of twin flames is that it has this connotation that we are not fully complete, that there is another part of us out there. And I know there's this idea of one flame was separated into two, and the two flames were sent out to go their separate ways in the world. There's that. Some people will say, no, twin flames is really about being your complete self and you find another person. There are different ways people have explained it, but at the end of the day, to me, it's about incompleteness. That's what it's about. Because if there's this idea that there is a twin of yours out there that you are going to find, that automatically says that on your own you are not enough, that you are missing something. And I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all. This incompleteness. Because in this feeling, with this feeling of incompleteness, comes this desperation to feel complete, obviously. And I refuse to believe that I am not complete if I am single for a long time or the rest of my life. I refuse to believe that. And that brings me to another point. In at least American culture, I can speak to US American culture, there is this aversion to being single. You know, I recently just entered a new relationship, and it's wonderful. It is challenging me in great, beautiful ways. A lot of things that I spoke about in my first point about biases and triggers, I feel like I am navigating those in a really kind of gorgeous and difficult way for myself. And I think it's been really, really good for me. And when I had made it Instagram official, so to speak, someone messaged me and said, you know, boyfriend? With a question mark, exclamation mark. I said, yes, it's my boyfriend. And they had a couple of nice things to say, and then they said, OMG, you're so lucky. And when I read that, I felt a little uncomfortable. Now, I feel blessed. I do feel lucky. But I don't like to emphasize that part of being lucky, because what does that mean about someone else who doesn't have my kind of relationship? They're unlucky? What does it mean about people who are single? They're unlucky? And also, people are just looking at an image of me and my boyfriend. They're not looking at, they don't know him, right? And so there's that part too, is that people are just looking at something that's visual. They're not getting to know us as a couple or getting to know him as a person. And I'm not knocking, I'm not trying to be a meanie or to overanalyze what that person said. They meant really, really well by it, and it was a nice compliment. But I just thought, I don't know, I don't want to emphasize being lucky, feeling lucky. Because at the same time, I worked hard to get to where I am. I would not be able to be in this relationship if I had met this person 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been a healthy component of the relationship. And so I've worked on myself to get to a point where I can attract someone like this. And I don't mean like this in terms of looks. That's a bonus. That's nice. But that's also what this comment, when I read this comment, OMG, you're so lucky, one of the first things I thought was, oh, you're just looking at the way we look together. You don't actually know who he is as a person yet. And he's a great person. And that's why I'm in this relationship, not because he's attractive to me. It's because he's a good person. We have a wonderful fun together. If he didn't have those qualities, I wouldn't be with him because looks are not enough to sustain a relationship. That's something I had to learn the hard way a couple years ago when I went through my spiritual journey. My spiritual awakening. One of my spiritual awakenings a couple years ago that related to my body image dysmorphia and my insecurities. And so I think this also speaks to a larger topic about what it means to be single in American culture. I can't speak for other cultures. I know many of you are in the UK and Australia, some in Africa, hey. But in American culture, there is this concern people have about being single. And I get it. There is also a loneliness epidemic. So I want to talk about soulmates. Soulmates. This idea you have a soulmate. Half of marriages in the US end in divorce. That's a lot. And that means that all those people who got married, or let's say a lot of those people who got married, thought they found their person, their soulmate. I have seen people get married, and I've seen pictures of marriages on Instagram and then learned later that that beautiful couple that seemed so happy, and they really seemed happy and had beautiful wedding, got divorced. And so what does that say about soulmates? Does that mean, okay, that person who got divorced, they were with the wrong person, that wasn't their soulmate, and they're still looking for their soulmate? I also want to challenge this idea that we are all meant to be with somebody. I think, and this is where you may not like me after this episode, you may not like me after this, there is an issue of entitlement in our culture around finding your soulmate, finding a partner. This idea that there's someone for everyone. Now, yes, everyone can find their type of person to be attracted to. That's possible. Yes, there is someone for everyone out there. But this idea that everyone is meant to be with one person the rest of their life, I don't know how I feel about that. Not everybody is meant to be single. Not everybody is meant to be in a relationship for the rest of their life. If this idea that everyone has the destiny of being with somebody for the rest of their life does a great injustice to people who maybe are really, really, truly deep down inside are happy wanting to be by themselves the rest of their lives. And that not coming from a place of insecurity or fear of relationship, they just prefer to be to themselves. Heck, there are relationships between people where they live in different homes and they prefer that the rest of their life. There's so many different ways to be in community with other people, to be in relationship with other people. And there's also just being single the rest of your life, and that's okay. And I think our culture has this really big fear of dying alone. But what we miss by focusing on that idea of dying alone is that there's so many ways to be in community. Being in community with people is so important. As human beings, we're meant to be in community with people. Just because you're single the rest of your life doesn't mean you can't find a community to be with so that you're not feeling lonely. But instead, we focus on being swept off our feet and being head over heels and finding our person who's going to help us feel less alone. Where in fact, at least for me, the goal is for me to be full in myself, not full of myself. Let me be very clear about that. To be whole and full within myself, and being with someone who wants to be whole and full within themselves, and having these two completions, these two beings of completeness, enjoy life together. That's my goal. And for some people, being complete on their own and single the rest of their life makes them happy. And so, yeah, I'm going to call it entitlement. I have said on my dating profile, which is how I met this person, I met them on a dating app, that one of the prompts I answered for a little bit on the dating profile was like, I think share a hot take on dating, or I don't know, I forgot what it was, but I said that most people in New York City say dating sucks in New York City. And for me, it's not so much about that dating sucks. It's that if I believe that I should find my person because I'm putting in this hard work, this should be easy for me, or I should know by the second date, or why am I going through 5 guys in a month? Don't judge me on that. Why am I going through 5 guys in a couple months, whatever it was, and I can't find my person? After I was feeling that way for some time, I realized that and listening to other people talk about dating at the same time, I realized that who am I to expect to find my person for the rest of my life now? This is what I was thinking. I'm like, what makes me feel so entitled to find a husband in a month, in 2 months? It takes time to get to know somebody. Movies really screwed us up, man. Movies and books made us believe that it's easy, that it's supposed to come naturally, quickly. It should come naturally, but we confuse naturally with quickly. And I think that spirit, I believe that God wants us to absorb life. Sometimes things happen quickly, and that's okay too. Sometimes people know on the first date that they've met their husband, their wife, and then they're together for 40 years. I've heard those stories too. I think it's all about the intention. And spirit, again, wants you to have experiences in your life that are going to open you up to possibility, that are going to help you become more and more and more your highest authentic self. And what if we explored dating that way? What if we dated people? What if we went on dates with that intention? And my really great friend, Tal Yardeni, she is the breakup recovery coach, and she is great. And she's done some sessions. I've done some sessions with her, and she is great. I highly recommend Tal Yardeni. She's on Instagram, and she coached me so wonderfully on this idea, this fact. When I was starting to go on some dates in 2025, she said, Juan, when you first met me, did you think, okay, in this first date, I need to hear this, this, and this, or we're not going to be friends ever again? Or after that first outing with her, she asked me, after that first outing with me, Juan, did you think, okay, where is this going? Are we going to be friends forever? Are we going to be best friends? I said, no. I just enjoyed our time together, and I thought, oh, we'll see each other again. She said, why can't you explore dating that way? Why can't you just see dating like that? You're getting to know somebody. You're not putting pressure on it. Some of the best advice I've heard. Shout out to Tal. I know it's not easy, folks, because when we go on dates, we call them dates because they're different from just hangouts, right? But that's something else I did to my boyfriend's chagrin. I called our dates in my calendar, hang out with his name, hang out with. Maybe once I put dates, but the more, because I tend to fall easily for people, I have to manage my expectations and the pressure. So instead of calling them on my calendar dates with, I call them hang out with. And I do that for friends. I do it for dates. It helped me with my mindset. So why can't we just explore our love life? Dating as just getting to know people. And releasing this entitlement that we have to find our person within a certain amount of time. Is it better to find our person in our 20s, what we think is our person, and be miserable? Or better to find them in our 40s, 50s, and feel like they're our family, our home, that they are home in a person? And if you feel resistance to that question, it's because you and I, because I do too, you and I are both the product of a culture that shames singlehood, that shames being alone. There's nothing wrong with being alone. Physically alone. Spiritually, we are never, ever alone. Nothing wrong with it. And we live in a culture that shames it. As much as religion is ingrained in our culture in the US, traditionally, there seems to be this separation spiritually between us and God and spirit. Because when we see someone hanging out by themselves somewhere, some of us think, oh my God, they're alone at the theme park. Oh my God, they're alone at the restaurant. Maybe they're happy being alone. Maybe that's something we should all aspire to being comfortable being with ourselves. And then when we find that person who feels complete in themselves too, and put those two together, wow. No one's perfect. It's just part of the journey to be more and more fully ourselves and complete within ourselves. So this Valentine's Day, if you are single, enjoy it. Listen, as much as I would like to have eventually a life partner, being single is great. It's great. Your own rules, your own schedule. You're not accountable to somebody else. Like with anything, there's pros and cons to being single, pros and cons to being in a relationship logistically. But when you find that person that they are worth you putting things aside for, it's a beautiful feeling. Beautiful feeling. But don't wait for somebody to feel like you are complete. Take yourself out on a date on Valentine's Day. Go to the park on Valentine's Day. Play with your dog on Valentine's Day. Eat something yummy at home. Watch a movie on Valentine's Day. Screw the cultural norm and the pink roses and the pink hearts. That's all lovely. I'm not knocking it because I'm a romantic myself. But just know that you are on this human journey to be more your authentic self. That's priority number one. That's why you're in this school called life. And everyone who's part of your life, boyfriend, girlfriend, or family, friends, they are there to help you learn how to be more your authentic self. When you see it from that perspective, maybe that will help you have patience in finding the right kind of person to help you do that. So I'm going to wish you a happy Valentine's Day, because it's not just about coupleships. It's about loving yourself. As cheesy as that sounds, I know. But I do wish you a lovely Valentine's Day. And take care of yourself. Take yourself out on a date, dang it. Do it. I used to do it all the time. I still do it. And I'm in a relationship. It's important to be with ourselves. Take care. Sending you love. And I'll see you on the next episode. Follow the podcast and please leave a review. If you want me to talk about a specific subject on the podcast or you have a question for the podcast, go to juanfranciscospirit.com and go to my contact page and submit that question.